So after the last Finish or Fail video, I had a bunch of comments saying that maybe I need to take a break from anime for a while or that I seem really jaded. But in that video, I enjoyed an anime a lot. Momokuri is probably my second favorite show of 2016 so far. If I had taken a break from anime, I wouldn't have seen Momokuri, which was like an injection of life and happiness directly into my veins. I also enjoyed New Game. Were those the only two I didn't drop? Either way, for me, if I enjoy 3 shows enough to finish them out of a season, not a terrible season. I think I did that in the summer. Mob Psycho, which was not in the Finish or Fail, Momokuri, and New Game. I liked enough to finish. So not a terrible season. Could have been better. Could have been worse. Let's find out what fall's like. You see, a lot of people are gonna find it weird that I'm bothering to even try all these fucking shows. But you gotta remember that the shows I end up liking are never the ones that everyone else likes, nor the ones that everyone tells me to watch. You know, everyone wants me to watch Yuri on Ice and Flip Flappers, either because they think it's my thing or because it's their favorite show. And sure, maybe I'll enjoy those two, but what if my favorite show of the whole season ends up being like Vivid Strike or Brave Witches or Long Riders, you know, shows that nobody fucking cares about. But I am interested in all of those. Never know. That's why I have to watch absolutely everything. I mean, no one talked about Momokuri. I wouldn't have found it unless I was willing to go to the trouble of shit like this. Alright. Anyway. 32. What the hell is that? Gakuen Handsome. Well, this is the one I was least excited about, so let's just knock that out really quick. Well, that short 3-minute animation was worse than I could possibly have imagined. I mean, I assumed this would be like a comedic parody of like a boys' love show or something based on this like incredibly shit artwork. And I don't think I'm wrong, but it doesn't even seem like a parody. The show is just really badly drawn. It looks like it was drawn by like a 13-year-old in Microsoft Paint. Like, but in total earnest. And the joke seems to be that the art is bad. There is otherwise no humor to it. It's just a generic boys' love show with shitty art. I mean, I don't know if maybe it tries for something funny later. I was confused. Like, on some level, I wasn't even sure if it was a joke. I thought maybe it's just legitimately that bad. Yeah, what a bizarre thing to be in existence. Okay, well, thank God that was quick and painless. Let's move on to the next 38. That's gonna be Teekyuu Season 8. Well, I can watch that in, like, probably less than an hour, so why not? Alright, well, I just watched Season 8 of Teekyuu, and it was definitely Teekyuu. For those who don't know what Teekyuu is, it's this series of 2-minute episodes of the most spastic, intense, fast-talking comedy in the universe. I can barely process it when I watch it, and only about half of the jokes do I even understand, and even fewer that I find funny. But the show is, the fact that it exists is fascinating enough in itself to keep me entertained. Like, I just like seeing it happen in front of me. It's a show, by the way, if you decide to watch the show, I best advise watching it on a cell phone, because the dialogue comes so fast that trying to read the subtitles and also look at the screen is impossible, unless they're like all in a tight little space. So either watch it with the screen minimized or on a cell phone for the best experience. It's just really intense and breakneck, and occasionally funny. And I haven't even been watching it in order. I've been watching the seasons at random, either when I feel like putting it on for somebody just to watch them experience Teekyuu, or for something like this where I'm finishing up every show in a season. And you know, I know I watched Teekyuu 7, and yet this season, there were suddenly 2 new, like, important main characters out of nowhere who were not introduced at all, but both of them were prominent. There's, like, 2 different OPs this season, and each one prominently featured one of these new characters who is never introduced or explained at all. One of them's an alien girl, and the other one's, like, this glasses-wearing, I guess she was, like, a class rep type of character? I'm not even sure. They both just showed up out of nowhere and were like main characters. It was very bizarre, as is everything in Teekyuu. You know, the show's at its best when it's just doing like really strong visual comedy where like something wacky happens or a really cool edit happens. There's lots of weird, crazy transitions and edits in the show. This season didn't have too much of that, though. It was more wordy, and a lot of the stuff I feel like is puns I'm just not getting or something, or I just literally can't process what's happening. But, you know, it's Teekyuu and it exists, and that's the world we live in. We've knocked out 2 shows in, like, less than half an hour, so we're making incredible progress already on this Funeo Amu. Okay, I've heard this is a good show. Let me actually see if this is done airing. I didn't even check with Teekyuu. I just happened to be right. So December 23rd, finished airing. All right. Well, that's convenient. I mean, it's only the 22nd currently for me, but I guess in Japan it's already finished. Let's go check it out. All right, look. Let's talk a little bit of philosophy of viewership for a second, okay? I strongly believe that you can make a great show about anything. Absolutely anything. Now, a lot of people seem to really, like, judge, at least when it comes to, like, picking what shows to watch. People really judge a lot based on premise. A lot of people only watch stuff... I'm adjusting my camera, that's why this is getting weird. People watch stuff based on how interesting it seems, how cool the plot is, or how relevant to their interests it is. You know, there's some people who will only watch action shows. Some people are more interested in a show if it doesn't have the typical anime aesthetic, or it's not about the kind of stuff, you know, not set in high school, stuff like that. Personally, for me, it all comes down to execution. I don't care what the hell it's about, as long as it's executed in an interesting way. You know, even though I have had times where I say, like, you know, I'm fucking sick of high school anime, it doesn't matter, because if a good high school anime comes out, I'm still gonna enjoy it, you know? Now, can you make a great show about making a dictionary? I'm sure you can. I don't think Funeo Amu takes the right approach to it. This show is a Noitamina show. It feels very classically Noitamina. For those who don't know, that's a programming block that was always intended to be aimed at a more mainstream audience, more broad viewership, more adult, often more aimed at women, at least in the early days, and they often have experimental stuff. In recent years, it's kind of been polluted a little bit, but it seems like it's getting back on course. This is a very Noitamina show. It looks and feels like a mature drama kind of thing. But what it really reminds me of is like a Japanese TV drama, or even like a BBC drama. Like, I don't think it's like a, how do I put it? Like, sometimes you watch an anime show that feels like the director was taking cues from film. Like, someone who is really trying to capture this, like, this really filmic, deep kind of cinematography experience. And then there's shows that, you know, that don't feel like anime, but they just feel like some TV show. And that's how this one kind of feels to me. Like, it's kind of overly melodramatic in its, like, presentation. Okay, first of all, the music in this show is fucking way over the top. It's constantly playing this, like, inspirational, motivational music, this, like, highfalutin orchestral soundtrack, like, everything that's happening is this golden, beautiful moment, like something that's happening in a Ghibli film. It's a show about making a dictionary. It's a show about, like, you know, there'll be a moment where, like, this guy goes into the room to find the other dude who's, like, the perfect guy for making a dictionary, and it's playing this, like, ridiculous, swelling, huge orchestra song for what is... my point is, it's making a mountain out of a molehill. Everything in this show is, like, so over-the-top dramatic and, like, presented with these, like, huge moments of, like, expressive animation or something for something that is not even interesting or cool. It's just, like, a guy talking about a dictionary. And, I think there's ways that you could make a cool dictionary show. I think the strongest moments in this show are when a character hears a word, usually it's the main guy, he hears a word that's kind of an odd word, and then he starts thinking about what that word means, and like how it has a unique definition that maybe isn't always seen in dictionaries, because the thing that the fucking mantra of this show essentially is that all dictionaries have their own personality. So you're always making new dictionaries because each one is, interprets things a little bit differently and has words that don't exist in the other dictionaries. So they're trying to create this super good dictionary, I guess. It's hard to really know what the difference is going to be between this dictionary and other ones. And this show takes place... I can't tell if it's in the... I assume it's in at least the 2000s, because they have cell phones, exist, and computers exist. So by this point, we should have the internet, and dictionaries are completely fucking unnecessary as, like, a print medium. Any words you want, you can look up the definition 8 different ways online. But there's not much to establish, like, why this dictionary? Why will this one be different from the others? What will be different about it, And every once in a while it explores a word in some depth, but most of it is just character building. It's mostly, like, about these main characters who are, written with some nuance and stuff, but they're not interesting people. I don't really care about what any of them's doing. They're making a fucking dictionary. I can't get excited about people making a dictionary unless you make a dictionary seem really cool. And the show doesn't do that. And it doesn't help that the way that they describe the dictionary, like there's a scene where the characters who are making the dictionary are trying to sell the main character guy on, like, joining their team. Like, trying to sell him, and in turn the audience, on what makes a dictionary cool. But the way they do it is with all these sort of loose and lofty metaphors about how words are an ocean that we're trying to cross, and a dictionary is a boat that will carry you across the ocean of words. And I really hate that shit. I really hate flowery metaphors that don't have, like, a concrete feeling meaning. This is part of why I don't typically write a lot of fiction. I tend to prefer the more concrete use of words. Maybe they're just writing a dictionary I wouldn't like or something. If I was going to write a show about making a dictionary, I'd write about Urban Dictionary. That's the only dictionary I need in my life. It's just really funny to me, like, that this show is constantly trying to be like, dictionaries! They're like, they're like an art. They're like a beautiful thing. It takes 10 years to make one, and all the dedication in the world, and, these people are so determined, and I'm like, full disclosure, as a kid, I didn't even read dictionaries, I by the time I was old enough to care about what words meant, I had the internet. So I don't even think I own a physical dictionary anywhere in this house. So maybe I'm not the right audience for this. Maybe someone who cares about dictionaries more than I do. I love language, so you would think that this would be an easy sell for me. Like, I love words. I love exploring the meanings of words, I'm often complimented on my vocabulary, even though I fuck up words like every video I make. Probably because I don't read the dictionary. But, the show's not selling me. It doesn't make words seem interesting. It's only, like, one little moment per episode when a character hears a word and is like, oh, that's kind of a weird word. Interesting that it's broken down differently. And they never really explore it, though. They never, like, get into the nitty-gritty of why the word is that way, Why don't we get some histories on some words, or, like, some intriguing facts about the word, or, like, have characters described. I feel like if you want to sell me on dictionaries, you'd be better off with, like, a Koji Kumeta piece, like Zetsubo Sensei or Joshiraku or fucking Nishio Scene book. Those sell you on words and linguistics, and have one of them write a show about making a dictionary. I'll bet it'll be great. But this one's just kind of like a mediocre drama show that's that just happens to be about a really boring subject matter, you know? The way that the main characters are written is all kind of obvious. The main guy is just sort of I hesitate to say autism because everyone gets on my case every time I say it, but like he's a guy who is super obsessed with organization and stands around watching people go up escalators as his pastime, and doesn't know how to communicate with anybody because he can't ever find the words he wants. And some pretty girl moves into his apartment flat, and he immediately falls in love with her, and she seems perfect. Everyone's just kind of perfect, you know, they're all these just likable, wholesome characters, you know. This is a show for people who hate anime, I think. This is a show for people who just want to see something that's not anime, that's like, you know, that's anime, but not anime. If that's what you're looking for, this show will scratch that itch, but nothing about it's really interesting, you know? I mean, it's not badly made, and it's not a bad show. I just am bored inherently at the concept of watching an overly dramatized take on making a dictionary. Who cares about a dictionary? I guess someone must. Okay, let's see what happens. It's 18. Udon no Kuni no Kiniro Kemari. Never heard of it, so yep. Alright, well, I watched the first 3 episodes of Poco's Udon World, and it was a pretty okay time. It's not a bad show. I feel very similarly to it, to how I felt to the similar show, Ama Ama to Inazuma, from the previous season. It's another show about an older guy raising a small child, though the circumstances are very different in this show. And it's got elements of, like, you know, character development, and like this one's much more strongly about exploring the main character and his sort of relationship with his hometown, and you know, feeling like after the death of his father that maybe he wants to like come back to the old town he used to live in and settle down there or something, which is all fine and good. I don't think he's that interesting of a character. Like, he's not badly written or anything. I just, much like I said about Funeo Amu, it's like I don't really care that much about his particular problem that he's going through, and he's not that entertaining to watch that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna watch a whole show about this guy, you know? This show has a lot of similarity both to Ama Ama to Inazuma and to Barakamon. It's kind of like if you combined those 2 shows into one, you'd get this show. And Barakamon was also a show about, you know, a guy from Tokyo who goes out to the sticks, and through his companionship with a little kid, sort of changes as a person. And that show was a lot more extreme in the attitude of the main character and in the situations that were happening, but it was also really, really funny, and the character was really endearing, and it was like I really wanted to watch a show about those characters, you know. It really helped that it was hilarious. It was one of the funniest shows of that season, you know, while also having this really heartfelt and engaging plot with these really memorable characters, and a lot to say about the nature of being an artist, which is something I always relate to those kinds of stories the best, about passionate characters trying to improve in their art. And this show, the main character guy doesn't really have that much going on in that regard. It's really just about him kind of hanging out with this kid and being like, hey, maybe it's nice out here, you know, in my hometown. Maybe I'll stick around. The kid, incidentally, is actually a tanuki who is in the form of a kid. And it's funny because in spite of that, he's a more realistic kid than the girl from Sweetness and Lightning. It's easier to say in the other title. I think she was meant to be a little bit older than this kid, maybe like a year or 2 older than this kid is meant to be. Because, I mean, he's a tanuki. He's probably not whatever age, but like, he's much more consistently, like, bratty and cries more and is more like a regular kid. And he's just as adorable. He's constantly doing ridiculously adorable shit. But it, like, when I made that video and I talked about Sweetness and Lightning in the last Finish or Fail, a lot of people were saying, like, oh, well, you know, she has these big bratty moments later in the show. That's kind of beside the point. Real kids are bratty every day. Real kids have a shit-fit meltdown at least every other day. And, you know, like, that's what I mean when I say that that show... Like, it's one thing to have a kid, like, to show that, yeah, occasionally the kid can be a pain in the ass, but that's not, it's not like that. Real kids are always a pain in the ass, you know? They can be super adorable and gratifying to be around, and raising them could be a good time, but there's probably going to be a moment every day when they make you regret your entire life, you know? at just about every age. So, you know... And that girl was also, she's so reasonable in terms of, like, understanding things. Like, characters would just explain something to her and she'd kind of get it, you know? Like, she was always on board for what they were talking about or understanding. And, yeah, it's just, like, a little bit too smart and good for a kid her age. You know, and again, it's an anime character, it's not that big a deal, but it just feels slightly manipulative to me when, like, the show is really selling you on these feels of, like, the daddy feels, you know, when it's not really presenting a realistic version of fatherhood or anything. But this show, I mean, similarly, it's mostly about adorableness. It's mostly about how fucking cute this kid is, you know, and certain elements of the fact that it's a tanuki makes him a little easier to deal with. You know, but he does, there is a little bit more brattiness, and I especially like in episode 2 when, the main guy meets, like, you know, an old classmate who has 2 kids, and those kids are immediately super bratty, and they were very realistically portrayed children. They acted in ways that I've seen kids act before, you know, so I was like, yeah, these kids feel totally real, comparatively. So, yeah, that aspect of it is kind of strong, but at the same time, I don't really care about, like, what's going... Like, the kid's purpose is just to fucking be adorable, and to sort of be a bounce pad for the main character's feelings, you know, that because he's taking care of this kid and having a good time with him, which the main character is, like, unbelievably natural at taking to this fatherly role, even though he had, at no previous point, thought about, you know, himself that way at all, but he kind of takes to it immediately and recognizes that he's taking to it immediately, which is kind of interesting. It's also interesting that he's 30 and by no means looks or acts any different from, like, the average 20-year-old anime character. You know, I think it's kind of funny, and I could totally see it. You know, I like it a lot more than the way that, like, fucking Erased presents a 29-year-old as if he's, like, at the end of his life, you know, that he's got, like, a completely non-anime voice, and he's, like, all deep and different sounding, and, like, complaining about millennials, even though he's, like, 5 years older than a millennial, you know, if that. Oh, God. This show, yeah, the main character's 30, and he, you know, just kind of acts like a normal fucking person. So, yeah, there's good things about the show, but there's just not that much going on in it. It's very slow. It's another comfy show. I feel like this year, if you really like comfy shows, this has been a great year for you. For me, it's a genre I kind of struggle with, the Iyashikei stuff, where, like, again, I feel like the context these shows are made for is one I don't really experience. The context of getting home from work or school and, like, watching something for the sake of relaxing, not something I do. I watch shows in marathon, and that's the only way I like to watch them. So, you know, when I watch a show like this, I just kind of feel like, all right, well, nothing's really happening, so I guess I'm bored of this one. Let's move on to the next. And I never feel like I'm missing out on much because there's so many shows like that, you know, even if I only watch the first 3 episodes of each one, I'm eventually going to see several shows worth of these episodes, you know, like, if 4 of them come out in a season and I watch the first 3 episodes of all of them, that's 12 episodes. Congratulations, I've watched a whole Iyashikei show, you know. So I'm getting just as much relaxation as I would be if I just chose one and finished it. And at least this way I get to experience all kinds of different characters and scenarios. But yeah, it's an alright show. I'm glad it wasn't very much about udon, by the way, because I don't like udon noodles. But udon's not even really that relevant in the show at all. See, previously, by the time we make it to the finish or fail videos, I've already dropped the vast majority of shows because of the Weebcast, where I've already seen all the first episodes. So I kind of want to make this episode run until I find a show that I actually finish, but I don't know how long that'll take. I mean, I already finished Teekyuu Season 8, but that hardly counts. 14, Natsume Yujincho Season 5. Now, I put this on my list, even though I haven't actually seen 3 and 4. You know, I'm going to go ahead and not watch that one just because I haven't seen Seasons 3 and 4 yet, and I think I probably should watch them before I continue with the show. So we'll do that at a later date. 23 is Stella no Maho. Don't know much about it. Let's check it out. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm 4 episodes into Stella no Maho. I like it so far enough. It's fine. I kind of want to watch the whole thing. I'm just not in the mood for it right now, so I'm just going to put it on hold until a later part. And then we'll watch another show. Number 3, Keijo! Oh, man. You know, I'm really happy that Keijo exists. And I'm happy that people have been playing defense for it. I'm glad to see that people appreciate a show like this. I think it is a good show. I only watched the first 2 episodes. I'm not that into it. I think it's a fun little sports show. I actually think more so than the sports element, the action is what's really exceptional about this show. There's some really shockingly good action direction and just really inventive things that are done with the limitation of you can only use your tits and ass to fight with. But there's that first episode, there's this one really big like fight scene that had all kinds of unique things done with the tits and ass fighting. And like initially I was going to drop the show right off just because I find it extremely aesthetically displeasing. Like just the show is just constantly shoving ass in your face, and I'm just kind of like, oh god, like it's definitely not my style. I don't. The character designs they're good for an action show, but I don't really find them that appealing or anything. Just the overall aesthetic of the show doesn't work for me, or the concept is not like something a show about butt fighting sounds hilarious, but and it can be hilarious at moments, but it's not enough to keep me entertained for 22 whole minutes. And I'm not like that into the characters or anything, so there's not enough to draw me into like continually watch the show. But I would have dropped it in that first episode, but that fucking action scene, there like so many unique things happened in such a short span of time that I was like, I gotta at least watch another episode just to see how many more of these tricks they're gonna pull out of their ass. But there wasn't as much of it in episode 2, and I figure it's probably relegated to the big fight scenes. I'd be tempted to watch this whole show just for that, but I didn't enjoy it enough to feel like I should watch the entire thing. I'm tempted, if this show gets dubbed, I want to try to show it to my mom, because my mom's a former roller derby player whose technique was to use her gigantic ass to shove people out of the way. I wonder if she'd enjoy a show like this, or if it would be too much. But that maybe if for some reason like that I ended up watching the show, if I had like friends or someone who wanted to watch it, I'd probably finish it off. But didn't quite care enough to watch more than a little bit here. 18. Token Ranbu Hanamaru. I don't even know. Wait, did I get the right one? No, wait. 18's already gone. Never mind. 26. That's Soushin Shoujo Matoi. I don't know what that is, so I guess I'll find out. Every season, a couple of these shows come out that are so confusingly written and directed, in spite of having, like, decent visual presentation and, like, competent elements, that I just find myself wondering, like, what the fuck happened? Like, how does this happen? How do you make a show where, like, it's so tonally confusing and so bizarre. I could not tell what genre this show was until like the end of the episode. I couldn't tell what tone it was going for, really who the protagonist was, what the hell was going on until the very end. And I only stuck around to the end so that I could figure out what was going on. This show opens with like a random in media res scene of like some really Chunibyo seeming like fight between like a magical girl and some monster or something, and I was like, okay, this is like a fantasy action show. But then it just cuts to like this shrine where these two shrine maidens are like selling stuff, but it's not even clear at first that they're in a shrine. Like there's no establishing shot. It just suddenly is these two characters talking about stuff, and the conversations they have are weird. And like the one character's like dad comes over and the girl's like, oh, it's my dad, but then she starts referring to him by name, and then the other girl like comments, oh, that's your dad. It was very strange. I was actually confused which one of them's dad it was for a second. Then like just everything that happens has this weird, unnatural flow to it, and I could never tell if this was going to be serious and dramatic or if it was going to be like a comedy, because there's a bunch of like really like, you know, like slapstick comedy moments, these moments where things just get like wacky and silly, but then other times it seems really serious and like there's some kind of bigger plot going on behind the scenes. And then I was just, is this an action show? Is it a drama? Is it a slice of life? Is it a comedy? I don't know. I still don't completely know. Like, going by the next episode preview, it looks like the show is pretty much just a magical girl show. Like, it's just about this girl who transforms and exorcises demons. And it was just so baffling to me that I don't get how these shows get made. I don't get how someone like passes a script where like the motivations of the characters are completely unclear, the style of the story is completely unclear. At the very end of the episode, like the main character girl trips over her dad who's lying on the ground, and she like is about to activate a magical girl transformation. She's like falling in slow motion, and it's like she says, all I want is to be normal. I just want to continue my normal life. And then she transforms. And at the end of the episode, she's like, I just wanted to be normal. And I'm thinking, why didn't they establish this at the very beginning, that all she wants is a normal life? Why not introduce us to a protagonist and tell us she wants a normal life? And instead, we find out, like, right at the moment that it's relevant, and it has no meaning to us. I mean, it's a boring motivation anyways, but why introduce it at such a weird moment when I'm just like, I don't even know anything about this character? The whole thing is really baffling and strange. And I gotta wonder how these things happen. Like, the screenwriter is Yosuke Kuroda, who has written some good shows. I mean, mostly adaptations that he's written that are great, but he wrote, like, Infinite Revias. I think that's a really solid drama series. But then he's also written stuff like Mad Lax. So, I mean, when it comes to anime writers, sometimes all bets are off, really. And the director's done a bunch of weird shit, none of which I think is very good. So, like, I just don't get how a team gets assembled to put, like real effort into making a show that is just baffling and strange, and like no one at any point recognized it. No one said, hey, this script makes no fucking sense and is tonally all over the place, and no one's gonna know what the hell they're watching. You know, they're just gonna be confused and and off-put. No one thought that. And this happens every season. We always get a couple of shows like this, like a couple of shows that you watch it and you think, this clearly had effort put into it, had heart put into it. You know, there's moments of, like, expressive animation. There's moments of competence, but it's so wrapped up in just an utterly abysmal script that it's never going to be good for anybody. Like, you don't make a show like this. Very strange. Strange to me every time I see it. Every time I see it happen. And I really wonder, like, who watches these and how do they get funded? How do these get off the ground? How does no one stop it? Do they just think that, like, the character designs are going to be strong enough, or like that people just like magical girls enough that it won't matter? Because, like, it's not the case, I don't think. Okay, I think this is going to be the last one for this video, regardless of what it is or whether I finish it or how far I get, just because this video is going on for for a while. I need to redo the numbers eventually so that it's less confusing. I know how much I have left. Let's go for it. It's number 10. That's Maho Shoujo Ikusei Keikaku. I believe that's Magical Girl Raising Project. So we'll see what happens with the dark, edgy magical girls. Well, I watched 2 episodes of Magical Girl Raising Project, which honestly is more than I was expecting to watch. I kind of expected to really hate this show. I didn't really enjoy it, but there were things in episode 1 that made me want to continue. Mostly the main character girl having such a, ridiculous, overblown love of magical girls, because I love magical girls too. So, a show where the main character is just really obsessed with magical girls as a genre and concept, and just wants to be one, is an entertaining idea. And I really liked that her childhood friend, who is a boy who is also into magical girls, now is one in this system now where all the girls have turned into magical girls. I just thought it was a really entertaining prospect that it was the little boy also got to become a magical girl. But that was enough to make me go, well, maybe I'll watch another episode just to see where this goes, because it hadn't yet. I mean, I know this is I know it's it's odd actually. It makes no secret about that, because it starts off the same way Higurashi does, where it shows some really violent scene, because it's just letting you know this will be dark eventually. We're just going to have to go through the rigmarole of, some setup first, some more lighthearted setup. Which is kind of odd, because it feels like the show is, the way it's handled is it's trying to pull the fact that it's dark out of nowhere at the end of episode 2, even though they already forewarned you. So I don't get what the point was of, holding off for so long before the reveal. And really, the vibe this show gives me, more than anything, is the same as Selector Infected Weecross, where it's you can really tell where it's going from the beginning, but it takes a long time getting there, and it really... It presents itself as this slow burn thriller almost, even though most of the show is just boring, which is really my biggest problem with the show. It's just boring. It's a lot of characters... not knowing the situation, and just sort of, you're kind of being drip fed new twists, and they're kind of out of nowhere. In the first episode, at the very end, the mascot character is well, now I made 16 of you, but now I'm cutting it in half. And then at the end of episode 2, it's well, it turns out when you lose, you die. And then in the future, it's going to turn out this, turn out that. I actually went and read a bunch of spoilers just to figure out exactly what was going to happen. I just really hate when I feel I'm waiting around for the interesting things to happen in a show. When, what is supposed to be interesting about a show is the plot twists. Because... it just means everything else is boring. The characters are not interesting in this show. They, aside from the one being a boy who gets to turn into a girl, which is a cool concept, and the idea of it, the characters have no real personality, and then nothing really going on. I don't really care about any of them. I don't really want to see where this is all going to go, because I know it's just going to be... ultimately a death game show. They're all going to kill each other. Oh boy, it's just another one. I've seen enough death game shows. I'm not a fan of the genre. I really hate shows that are just about 8 people and they all have to kill each other, and whoever's left standing is the winner. I've always hated the genre, and I can tell that's where this is going. And even with Weecross, the characters had a little bit more going on. They had a little bit more in the way of motivations. This show, I don't feel that much. And I'm sure, more will be established as it goes along, but it's very slow and very plotting, and it really feels like it's dragging me along going, well, it's gonna get dark. Ooh, they're gonna kill each other eventually. Oh, you're gonna get to see some magical girls fight each other, and I'm I don't fucking care. I don't want to see that. That doesn't sound exciting to me. I don't want to watch a bunch of a bunch of adorable girls die. Not my thing. And they are pretty adorable. I will give the show that the character designs are pretty good. But yeah, I don't know. It's not my kind of show, and I kind of knew that going in, but I figured I'd give it a shot anyways, because I love magical girls, so, it's enough to at least let me give it a fair shake, but I can't say I'm too interested. Anyway, that's it for this video of me watching fall shows because it's gone on long. It's funny because I said I'd finish. I said I'm not going to stop this until I watch a show I like enough to finish it. And the only show I felt I kind of liked, I didn't even talk about because I'm going to save it for another video. But, whatever. See you next time.